Okay, let's bring in Justin Dunk now from 3downnation.com. Thank you, Justin, for sitting through that. How are you today out there in Southern Ontario, my man?
Keeping well. It's a beautiful day out here, guys. Not to brag about it too much.
Good. It's a beautiful day out here, too. One of the windiest weekends of the year, however. Justin, doing our best to keep the 3-down game forefront, and but I don't think we're doing as well as you are, my man, over at 3downnation.com. What's news today? Because people are wondering about a league update.
I'd argue that, though, Roddy. You guys at the Rod Pedersen Show with the CFL Sim has kept the actual football part of that at the forefront. And, of course, we're going to have all the news at 3Down Nation. The absolute latest, I've been going around the league, building up some notes for you guys for the next appearance, which is obviously right now. So we'll get to maybe the hottest topic, or dare I say name, around the league right now. And everyone's focused on Randy Ambrosie and will he or won't he be the commissioner coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, I can tell you the name that I've heard behind the scenes that has come up, and everybody's asking, well, if it's not Ambrosie, who is it? That name is Ken Derritt, a Winnipeg native, went to Laurentian University, part of their sports administration program, got a bachelor in commerce in sports administration there, actually worked for 10 years from 1978 to 1988. Then, keep up with me here for a minute. Went to Labatt, oversaw a number of their sports and entertainment partnerships, then went to NBA Canada, then went to the NBA and was part of their global marketing team where he crossed paths with former CFL Commissioner Mark Cohan. The Chargers saw what he was doing in the NBA, brought him in to be their senior vice president, what ended up being, of marketing, and had a big impact there for the Chargers. Dean Spanos was a big fan of his, and currently he's serving on the board of directors for the San Diego Foundation and is also on the marketing committee for the 2021 U.S. Open Championship, Roddy. So Ken Derritt is a very hot name in CFL circles right now.
Let's back up for a second. We're talking about the next commissioner of the Canadian Football League. That's what you're talking about. Where we missed an off-ramp here somewhere because we still got a commissioner. So what's Keith Barrett? You're talking about the next commissioner? What's going on here?
That's right. And I feel like when you start to hear candidates and names being bandied about behind the scenes, as Ken Derritt has been, that could, and I need to emphasize could, spell the end of Randy Ambrosie. Now, recently there was a general managers meeting where they voted 7-2 against the global initiative. So keep that in mind. Ambrosie has had the global CFL 2.0 initiative at the forefront of his tenure as commissioner of the CFL. And from what I was told, Ambrosie made a presentation to the board of governors for what the future of the league is going to look like. So if you read between the lines there, that to me was essentially Ambrosie showing, all right, what's the plan for the future of the league? And are the board of governors on side with it to potentially keep him in that role as the commish? So I guess that's the prelude to where Ken Derritt's name comes in as a potential candidate to be the commissioner of the CFL.
So I guess the main thing out of all this is, and you just mentioned that there was a GM's meeting, they voted 7-2 against moving forward with CFL 2.0. So things are happening in the Canadian Football League. It's just nobody really sees them, and obviously that's the way the league wants it.
That's right. It's been very quiet, and it's not like they want this information getting out, but that's why I dig into it for you guys and also have it up on 3Down Nation so people can have an idea of what's going on. And I really get the sense, Roddy, that the global initiative could be the hill that Ambrosie lives or potentially dies on.
Well, that 7-2 against is pretty resounding, Justin, that the teams don't want it.
It really is. And when you consider the amount of money that's been invested in it, and it's well over $1 million at this point, and the return, and I'll give you an idea, last year in 2019, the return that they saw was around the $10,000 mark. So you do the math there, and that's a big loss of money for the CFL to be investing into something and not seeing a return. Now, it was always going to be a long-term play, but when you factor in that we're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, jobs have been affected, that some of those jobs, like let's say Dwayne Mandrusiak out in Edmonton, could have been saved with some of that money that was lost, or some people view it as an investment into the global initiative.
So you mentioned Dwayne Mandrusiak. You guys reported on 3 Down. I saw that the CFLPA collectively wrote him a letter, because I read 3 Down several times a day. But as it was pointed out to me late last week, there was maybe up to 18 people let go by Edmonton, but we only heard about 1. What do you know about league layoffs right now through about 200 days into the pandemic?
You're right, Roddy. There was a number out in Edmonton. Apparently the same thing could be happening right where you guys are in Saskatchewan. And the one that really spoke volumes to me was Al Couture, the head therapist in Winnipeg with the Blue Bombers. He was the guy behind the entire medical plan of the Winnipeg Hub City model. He was doing a lot of work, and literally all the way up until the day that the Canadian government, as we first reported at 3 Down Nation, said they weren't going to give the league a CFL-specific financial package, was working on that medical plan to push it through both provincially and federally. And to be quite honest, the people in power in politics were fans of that plan. So Couture was behind it, but then when there was no season, he gets laid off. Now, he'll be back in 2021, but to me, when you talk about Mandrusiak and Couture and some of the other names that aren't even out there yet, it's the people that are the glue of this league that are suffering, and we're looking at the leadership of it, questioning it, and the decisions being made. For example, the CFL has not come out with a statement about Mandrusiak, but the Canadian Football League Players Association has the class to acknowledge what he meant, not only to their membership, but to the Edmonton Football Club over the years. The silence is deafening from the league. You see the people that are underneath Ambrosie, and I hate to say it and point them out, but it's true, suffering, and we don't hear anything from the commissioner as to why these layoffs are happening.
Suffering is the word. And if you've been watching into the show today, that's my rant about, but sports doesn't matter. Still don't quite understand that. And by the way, Kim Murphy, stepping down after 28 years as a CFL official, he was not acknowledged by the league either. He won't say it, but I'll speak for him. He's like, what? When we come out of all this, the CFL needs to examine how they do these types of things or don't do these types of things, because it's not the CFL that we know. By the way, you guys have been doing a great job following the blossoming career of Chase Claypool. Did the Steelers have a bye last week? I didn't. This week, because I didn't see him all over the highlights. Did they not play?
They did play against the Houston Texans. They won, so they're 3-0. Claypool had 1 catch for 24 yards, did some yeoman's work on special teams as well. So he's sort of in that area where they're giving him bite-sized chunks of the offense to make sure he's comfortable. Obviously, he was all over the highlight reels around North America and even globally with the 84-yard touchdown he had in Week 2 against the Denver Broncos. It should be noted, the longest play from scrimmage in history by a Canadian-born player. So Claypool continues to evolve and develop within the Steelers offense. He has the trust of Big Ben Roethlisberger, but they don't want to force feed it to him. They don't want it to come to him too quickly and too fast, like we've seen with, let's say, a number of quarterbacks who were drafted in the first round and pushed out there. I do believe, though, the Steelers see a star potential in the future for Claypool.
We're going a little long, but the Claypool discussion brings something up. Because you were a 5-year starter at Guelph as a Canadian quarterback, in the next CFL, whatever that is, 3.0, well, how do you feel about the CFL getting squished in this pro football world where the best Canadians are actually going to the NFL now? Chase Claypool's a great example, Burt Gallimore, all these kids down there, Chuba Hubbard, may never even set foot on a CFL field. And then you got the CFL who poured millions into grassroots, right? It almost caused their own problem. They've done so much for amateur football in Canada, and this is how it's turned out. How could they change that in their favor when they come back, do you think?
Well, I think overall that's going to be a benefit to the CFL because you're going to have the elite guys go down to the NFL, obviously, because it makes literal dollars and cents to play there. There's millions of dollars on the line compared to hundreds of thousands up here. But what it shows me, Roddy, and this is the other side of the argument that I would say, is you have more and more numbers of Canadians going down to play NCAA football because you can get a full scholarship, you get your whole tuition paid for, your whole degree paid for. And more we're seeing the level of U Sports football come to the forefront. So I think the CFL actually needs to look at having more Canadians in the league, and that's where the global initiative conundrum comes into play. And if you look at one example, Tavius Robinson transfers from the University of Guelph because the U Sports season is canceled, goes down to the University of Mississippi, starts his first game in the SEC, the preeminent conference in university or college football on the face of the planet. So that shows you that there is no excuse for scouts and general managers out in the CFL to be using the Canadian argument as a crutch. And we hear it all too often that there's not enough Canadians to go around. And if we did ever, pie in the sky, get a team out in Atlantic with the Schooners, would we have enough Canadians to fill those roles? Yes. There's more than ever in the NCAA. As you mentioned, there's more than ever that are going to play in the NFL. Look at Chase Claypool. Look at Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. These guys are legitimate starters and impact players on their team. And we have a number of these players in our own backyard at Canadian universities. They just don't get the opportunity. If Tavius Robinson doesn't prove that, I don't know what does. And I'll go a step further. Dean Leonard with the University of Calgary. He did the same thing. Went from Calgary to Ole Miss, was in the rotation there in the secondary for the Rebels, on the field in his first career SEC game. That's the type of talent we have here. It just needs to start being acknowledged better.
Justin, is this a passion project for you?
A little bit, man. You can sense it, man. There's talent here.
Never seen you so worked up. I'm glad I asked. Okay, my man, keep up the great work at 3 Down. Let's do it again soon.
You bet, Roddy. Stay safe out there.
Justin Dunk with some big scoops. They're already talking about the next commissioner of the CFL. Did you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
GM's voting down CFL 2.0.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.